Hello, I'm Suzanne Smith. The novel Kiss of Broken Glass tells the inner thoughts and feelings of a Florida teenager who is institutionalized for 72 hours after she is found cutting herself in the school bathroom. This emotional story won the Gold Award in the Young Adult category for the 2014 Florida Book Awards. Madeleine Kuderick joins us to talk about this story that has a very personal connection for her. Madeleine, thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, tell us how this personal story came about for you.
This really did arise because of a situation that happened with my daughter when she was in middle school, and it was a very emotional experience, as you might imagine. And at that time, I was very unfamiliar with self-harm, and I was trying to learn more about it from the teen's perspective. I certainly researched some clinical avenues, but I also began looking at social media, Tumblr, Twitter, places like that, where teens were really being pretty candid and honest with their experiences and kind of pouring out their hearts in that medium about how prevalent it was becoming, how they were being responded to within the school setting and things of that nature. And I was really quite moved and overwhelmed by this issue, both on the personal level as well as what I was seeing happen prevalent, throughout the U.S. and other countries as well. So this led me to feel like it was a very important topic, a timely issue that deserved to be written about.
Now, your daughter, like you said, was inspired, but it's not her story.
It is not. It is definitely
other than the initial situation.
Yes.
It's different.
Absolutely. It's a fictional character. It is not my daughter's personal experience, other than that being the catalyst to me beginning to write about it. When I began to read these hundreds of other teens, the voices just began to fill my head. And so I would say that Kenna, my character, is kind of a composite of these many, many voices that I heard through the research.
Your daughter was also involved with the process to help you make sure the voice was correct.
She was. After I had gotten a fair way into the writing process, I did approach her and tell her I was writing about this and really talk to her at great length about her comfort level with going forward with this type of a book. And because certainly her needs and feelings were the most important thing to me. But she was quite receptive to the idea and really felt that it would be an important thing to pursue, and became involved then in reading the manuscript and commenting on things that she either felt the character would say at a particular time or would be thinking at that moment, reactions and so on. And what I speak often about at high schools and conferences and so forth is how important it is to have books like this with fictional characters that are experiencing these difficult times, so that young people can kind of speak through those fictional characters and feel the safety of being able to talk about maybe some very uncomfortable and deeply personal issues, but through the safety of that fictional character. And I think I first saw it with my own daughters in the manuscript process, and continue to hear from teens how it helps them in their classrooms.
Before I go on further, how is your daughter doing today?
She's doing very well. Thank you for asking. And it's been quite a number of years, so she's in a good place, and I appreciate you checking.
Now, when people read this, it's very much the perspective of Kenna's. You don't get really other people's viewpoints.
Right.
But tell us about Kenna and how why she's there for a 72 period, 2-hour period.
This is kind of modeled after a realistic issue that does occur in Florida, which is called the Baker Act. So if somebody is doing something that's considered, that it may harm themselves or others, they can be quote unquote Baker acted and observed for 72 hours within this institutional setting to basically stabilize them and make sure that nothing dramatic will happen. And so that's really the format that I set it up. The entire book occurs in that 72 hours. And it was very important to me that I be authentic to what could and could not truly happen in just 3 days. I did want there to be some discovery and some tools and coping strategies that would be helpful to this character, but I also didn't want it to be an unrealistic tie it up with a bow type of ending, because I think that would be a disservice to readers to think that something of this complexity could be resolved in 3 days.
The other part of this isn't just the 3-day structure, but also the structure of how you wrote it, because you combined verse and novel together. Did you always intend to do that?
It wasn't an intentional process. It really poured out of me in that way. And I think what was occurring, honestly, was it was just echoing that Tumblr format where I, again, saw so many of these young people just being very open and honest. And their writing also has that feel of, almost poetry and very strong emotionality, but in, very brief bursts of their experience. And so I think the verses that you see kind of echo what I was seeing in the social media.
Now, do you normally consider yourself somebody who writes poetry or someone who writes novels?
I would consider myself a poet, so that's probably why that came easier to me. But I certainly can write in prose as well, and I like alternate formats, so I like to mix it up. And but poetry does come most naturally.
What are you working on right now?
I am working on another contemporary realistic fiction. I'm kind of in the early phases, and I'm one of those kind of authors that don't like to talk about too much until it gets a little further down. Okay. But it'll be another realistic fiction with HarperCollins.
Will it be in poetry, structured novel, prose?
There will be an element of poetry for sure. I don't know if it'll be as heavy as in Kiss.
Let's see. What kind of reaction are you getting from readers from
I'm
this
getting
book?
a really strong positive reaction. Again, especially when I speak to teens, there will always be one or more individuals who approach me after the speaking engagement who will tell me how this occurred in their life or for their family member or friend, and it really meant something to hear a talk about it. And I do think we talk about this being an important subject to make, but it's a hard subject, so I don't think they always hear it. And so I really do try to encourage teachers to use books like this and others that are on these kind of subjects to open up those really important dialogues.
Now, I found this was fascinating, and I can see where it would help teenagers, but I think could it also help parents dealing with this as well?
I do hope that it will help family members. I mean, obviously I came to it from as a parent, so I had that perspective as well. And so I do hope that people that read it that may not be self-harming personally, but may know somebody, I hope it gives them some empathy, maybe into what's going on in their minds, maybe encourages them to just be good listeners, to not be judgmental, to be that safe place, because sometimes just talking about it can be so critical,
Thank you very much. The Florida Book Awards are presented annually to recognize, honor, and celebrate the best Florida literature. The program is coordinated by the Florida State University Libraries and co-sponsored by these groups that promote books by and for all Floridians.